Thank you for coming. MashaAllah, we have huge audience. Usually in cases like this, when you have very few number of audience, only those who are interested will come. When we were coming with my wife, I was telling her, who in Istanbul on Saturday will attend a lecture with this traffic, with this rain and so on? And people usually try to finish their own things on Saturdays. So I said, if we have 3 or 4 people, it's fantastic. We had 9 maybe, so it's I was mistaken. Where is our the lady? She's there. There is some people coming. Okay. No, it's okay. Okay. Now, the topic today is about responsibility, participation, and urbanism. This is I did in 1984. This is the work I finished in 1984. And it is the first chapter of a book titled Crisis in the Built Environment. That was published lately in 1986, 87 in a book. Now, after that, I started to work on the same subject with different angle. But you may say, why Jamil showing us something that is outdated? No, it's not outdated. When I finished my doctoral thesis, John Habrakan, my advisor, said, Jamil, for 30 years, the people will not recognize your work. I said, why? He said, well, your work is not architecture, it's not planning, it's not sociology, it's not economy. What is it? And the people these days are very much, in that time, in the 80s, very much entrenched into capitalism, globalization, and so on. Nobody was interested in different approaches to the built environment. And you keep going with polluting the built environment, climate change, you know, these things. So that's what I'll present today, but through your questions, we will go further, inshallah. Now I will remind you with few issues. Usually, it doesn't work with the pointer doesn't work with. Okay. Usually, I read traditional environments, spaces, buildings, laws, economies, and so on. Analyze them, explain them. So I make conclusions. I don't start with philosophy. I don't start with economy. I don't start with sociology. I start from real life. I have it, but it doesn't work.
This one.
This will work?
Yeah, you just press here.
The same. Yeah, it's okay, it's okay. That's, I won't need it. So, I start from real life. For example, you have in this room seats here, desks there. Let's say I said, I will not give a lecture till you move those models and you put them here. She says, no. I say, why? I don't like this window. I like that window. I like that heater. So we keep arguing about it. Gradually, we reach an agreement, right? So here, who controls this tables and the chairs? Who controls it? She or me? She.
Both.
Maybe both. She, me, both. How do we know? How do we know? Now, if we know who controls this area. Then if we know about the walls. Let's say they want to remove this wall. The Baladiyya says no, or the Awqaf says no. We insist, let's say, we'll have a fight. Who decides? We don't know. Till we see it happen, then we know who did it. Again, about the building. Maybe the Baladiyya says, well, it is not that profitable to have this building in this site. We want to make it a hotel. It is large enough. The people surrounding it, they say, no, because if you make a hotel, we cannot see the Bosphorus. So we have a fight. How it's resolved? So when you see things from real sight, then you make conclusions. And that's important. Not to start from philosophy or economy, start from the real side. If I have water, I'll be thankful. Okay? So start from the real side. So what I do, I read the built environment, then gradually I make conclusions, and usually the people often, and this will happen with you also, they reject the conclusions. They say he's crazy. Jamil is crazy. Why? Because we are so much entrenched in the capitalist society. We are within a capitalist society. We are entrenched. And this is a problem. Now let's look at this video. We have a problem because there is no cable. Because there is no cable, so it is wireless. Anyhow, it didn't come clear because it's wireless. It is a carriage that has a bride. They're walking in the street. There is electric cable. What happened? They tried to move it up. The carriage fall down. Usually you see it straight, fast, you will understand it. Now who's responsible? Why this happened? Let's look at this. What do you see here? This is in Venice. You want with the mic or without the mic? Is it okay without the mic? Because we are very few in number.
Maybe better.
Yeah, without the mic it's better, okay? You are photographing or?
With microphone will be better.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. The recording. Now, this is in Venice. This is Istanbul. This is Asila, North Africa. And this is in Fez. What do you notice? You notice here that there was a gallery here, and then the Baladiyya rented away that space for merchants. The people passing by here are damaged. They are not comfortable. They don't like it. Who's supposed to make this decision? The people, the passers-by, or the Baladiyya? Here, for example, in Istanbul, you see that everywhere, not only Istanbul, all over the Muslim world, because I'll explain why later, people are exhibiting things here outside. I don't know Turkish, so I don't know the Turkish culture, but I will ask, is this appropriate? Sometimes it will be very crowded. Who gave him the right to do that? Does he control the space, or the Baladiyya, or the passers-by? Who controls that space? That's why I started with the example with control when I said who controls the tables. Here in Asila, North Africa, you see the owners of the shop control the whole elevation. They can do whatever they want. Now, you may not like it, you like it, that's another question. But here I'm talking about control. Here again in Fez, people exhibiting things outside. Now, this is my wife in, look at her dress, how it moves with the air. What does this mean? It means the people in the site who decided the location of the building, the width of the street, created a passageway for air movement that makes the place very comfortable. Now, can planner do that or cannot? This is the question. Because we said in the beginning, who decides? The people on the site, when they decide, because they know everything, they are living in the site, what do? They make often wise decisions, good decisions. But the people are ignorant. The people of the site these days are ignorant. In the past, they were not like that. They were very knowledgeable. Why? Because they are exercising the site again and again and again. A good example that if we here as a group decided to redesign this space, what do? We try and try and try till we find the best solution that we all accept, we all agree upon. So trying things in the site is very important. And who can try? Those who can control are the ones who can try. If you don't give them the chance to control, what happens? They lose interest. Now, my argument is the following. Innovation, technical advancement, mass production, etc. camouflaged our perception of good quality environment as being product of external control. A traditional wisdom was not referred to in most decision-making process. Humanity lost the opportunity of developing local solutions. It's very clear. My argument is that with modernity, we humans lost the chance of learning from religions, from past wisdoms, and so on. Why? Because we thought everything will be very good if it's planned. Yes, it will be, but planning should have another role. That's what I'm trying to explain. Now, let's look at this space. It became a Vakf for design, Tasarım Vakf. How did it happen? There is a story behind that, right? The building was not designed for that. Then it was changed something, then something else. There is a process. What is the process? What do I mean by process? Do the Waqf has the right to do that? Do the Baladiyya has the right to do that? Do the people around this building has the right to agree, or they say, no, we want this to be kindergarten for our kids? And they may lobby with the Baladiyya president to make it kindergarten. So there is a process. Who decides what is that process? Who makes it happen or no? Let's say I told her, why you look very nice, the same color, please come closer. Let's just say I say that. She said, no, I don't want to do that. I said, I will not continue the lecture till she do that. Interacted with the rights, and they gave us these forums. We have these forums. Now, what do we do in planning and architecture and urban design? We don't look at these processes. We look at these end products, and the designer, he says, well, I like it, then I will reproduce it. When I don't like it, I will not use it again. That's why when they design these days, and you see that very often in most countries of the Muslim world, what do? They look at the traditional environment, the Muslim built environment, and what do? They copy elements that went through a process for people who died, past people. They copy those elements and reproduce them again. So they have a filter in their head. I like this. I don't like this. This is suitable, this is not suitable. And they make justifications for that. Now, let's imagine that Picasso, you know Picasso, right? Picasso, he is a very famous painter. He painted, let's say, I don't know how many, 10, 20, 30 paintings, I don't know. Let's say he made the best 5 paintings in his life, and we said, okay, Mr. Picasso, you cannot repaint more paintings, keep reproducing the paintings that you did. Is this logic? Does this make sense? What should we say? Okay, Picasso, you were inventive, continue being inventive, right? And that's what happened with the Muslim built environment. What did they did? For example, here, this is a housing project that won the Rakan Award in Tunis. There is an overpass. They took the overpass from the traditional environment, they copied it, improved it, and reproduced it. But they never looked at this. And my argument is that to make a good built environment, you should look at what? At this. And then it will produce something, not necessarily something else. Rather than you having this, we might have overpass like this. But we didn't have the chance to do that. Is it clear now where I'm going? That's why I argued that we need a theory to understand how the built environment works if we want to create a built environment with higher quality. With higher quality. It may not be very well designed. In the traditional environment, it's not very well designed, but it works very well. What does work very well means? It could be sustainable, it could be, we'll come to that. And that's why I called the book Crisis in the Built Environment. And I used Thomas Kuhn's concept because he argues, let's not go to that, because he argued that there is a paradigm, anomalous, crisis, then paradigm. I said at that time we need a theory to understand the built environment in terms of process. Now, I studied with a professor called, his name is John Habrakan. He died 2 months ago. He's from the Netherlands. And in the 60s of the last century, he wrote a book under the title of Supports and Alternative Mass Housing. And he was arguing in that book that housing will always fail unless we rethink control, unless we give the people more freedom to act. Otherwise, housing will always fail. And he introduced the concept of control and dominance. Control means, as I gave you the examples of the chair, the tables, and so on. This is control. It's a relationship between people and spaces and objects. Dominance is a relationship between people, parties. The baladiyya with the local baladiyya with the gas station owner with his employees and so on. That is dominance. Control is a relationship, and this is very important, the distinction. Control, relationship between people and spaces and objects. Now, look at these slides. How does change relate to control? You see, if you were not here today, and you know this space from yesterday, this is how it is organized. And I insisted that we should change the chairs and the tables. And you came tomorrow, you don't know what happened. What do you see? You see change, right? Then you say, why did they change it? Somebody should have the power to change it. This is how the environment is. We think the built environment is static, it's not changing. The built environment is a dynamic entity. The built environment is always changing. If you look at this building in 100 years, see what happened to it. Look at the Bosphorus facade in 100 years, see what's happening to it. Look at Istanbul in 100 years, see what's happening. Always things are changing. The built environment is always changing. But we don't see it because we're living in it. We need time, 10, 15, 20 years, to see how it is changing. When we see how it's changing, then we know who's in control. We cannot know who is in control unless we see change. Here, for example, a building owner, he added an extension, but because the Baladiya shouldn't say no and so on, he recovered the whole building with the same material again. So you don't see the change. Here is in Tangier. I had the chance to come to Istanbul in 1985-86. I went to Zafali Bazaar. I found postcards like this. I bought them, quite a good number of them. Then I looked at those postcards and I traveled to those locations to photograph them again to see change, because I was interested in change in the built environment. If you don't see change, you cannot understand the built environment, because you look at it as dead. If you see it changing over time, you see it as something moving, alive. And then you can know the actors shaping it. When you see the actors shaping it, you can understand the relationship between those actors, then you can intervene and design. Otherwise, you cannot design. You make the wrong decisions. That's why in planning, till now, in the Western culture, every few years they have new theories of planning, new theories of planning. So this is Tangier, and you see how much it's changed. There was no buildings here, buildings up here. The whole yard changed. Almost the whole thing changed. Is the built environment a chess game? You know chess game, shatranj? Let's say that you came and you saw people living chess game and you don't know the rules of the game. You don't know the rules. What do they do? What do you do? You keep observing, right? You keep looking. He moves, she moves, he moves, she moves. Gradually, you say, the horse goes L shape. The castle goes straight. You start understanding, without talking to the player, the rules of the game. The same with the built environment to some extent. We don't understand how it operates, yet we make theories about it. We have to understand it first. How do you understand it without change? When the elements in chess moves, just like the built environment, elements are moving. If we observe long enough, we can see the changes. From the changes, we can understand the rules. But unfortunately, it's not chess game. In the built environment, it's far more complicated. Why? Because there's so many agents involved in the built environment. There is the baladiya, there is the mayor, there is the businessman making lobbying, okay? There is the merchants, there is the students, there is the buses, there is the taxi drivers gathering and so on. Endless, complicated interaction. We cannot understand it unless we understand who controls what power. You see now in Istanbul they're fighting. Who becomes the mayor of Istanbul? Everywhere you see the pictures of those. Why? Power, power. Again, this is San Francisco. You see how the facade changed. There must be rules and regulations to be followed for that change. Now this is Tunis. What do you see here? There was a building here that was demolished. Somebody decided to change his property to a parking space. Why he do that? Because it's more profitable. Here, we left house maybe 2 hours before we come here because I was thinking, where do I park? You have to look for parking space, right? And it makes more money to make parking space. But that's not the issue. When he transformed his building to a plot for car parking, what happened? All the buildings surrounding were subject to change. Why? Because the building in the side, maybe the guy says, well, I'll make a restaurant because there is parking space. Customers could come. I'll make pharmacy, Akzana. And gradually, a change trigger change. Sometimes you see people, or the municipality transforms a building into hospital. Immediately, gradually, the spaces around it become laboratories, pharmacies, and so on. This is in Tunis, a monumental building that transformed into cafe. Can I move this? No, it's fixed. Okay. Now, when we planners and it's okay. When we planners and architects study the traditional environment, you know, when I say traditional environment, what does that mean? Traditional environment, what does it mean? It is the environment that's built by the people, craftsmen and so on, before modernity. So control was in the side of the people. What happened with the new planning? They looked on the traditional environment as something that is not mature, something not so good. So they gave it names like organic versus plant, centralized versus decentralized, bottom-up decision-making process, vernacular, so many names. Those names donate something. That those environments, because they were not planned by architects or professionals, or they may not be that good. I'll argue the opposite. That no, they were very planned, very much planned, very well organized. Here now today I'll give you just one example. How we are suffering these days because of this simple thing that the people of the site lost control. Here you see, in the Islamic legal system, not only Islam, all countries, the principle of damage was important. You can't do anything usually before modernity unless you don't damage others. Here a guy, maybe he got permission from Baladiya, he made a restaurant, now the smoke goes up. The people might be damaged, but he got permission from who? The Baladiya. This is in Jevizliba, there was gas station. One day I was passing, I saw it. Usually, sometimes I take gas from here. They increased the number of pumps. You know pumps? You put gas. They increased the number. Maybe before it was 20 pumps, now it is 40 pumps. What happened? More cars will come into this gas station, right? More cars. Who will be damaged? Those guys will be damaged, the people living around it. Can they say no? These days they cannot. Who has the permission? Who gives the permission? Outsiders, the Baladiya, whatever. People who don't live in the site. In the traditional environment, who gives the permission? The people in the site. Can you corrupt the people of the site? Can you give them corruption? No, because they will be damaged. But you can always corrupt the people outside in the Baladiya. This is, again, you see this often, somebody who have the compressor in summer outside. It makes hot air, the people passing by will be damaged. But sometimes damage is difficult to define. This guy in England, he wanted to build, I think, a basement. The neighbor said no, because the neighbor are in control. They said no. What he did, to annoy them, he colored his facade like this. Of course, he has the freedom with the facade. They bargained, I think, finally they agreed, and they allowed him. This is in Izmir. Now, in the traditional environment, the dead in the street is owned by the people of the site. The dead in the street is owned by the people living in the site. This is in Izmir, a dead end. At the end of the street, a guy transformed his house into a toilet. Now, the people living around that house in the dead street will be damaged. Can they object? Maybe it goes to the court and so on and so forth. But in the traditional environment, he cannot do that. Why? People in the site are in control. But now, who's in control? Outsider party, not the people in the site. Okay? To understand it very well, let's say that the mayor of this area said, Jamil, tomorrow you give a lecture, you cannot sit like this. We should change direction to that area. And he's not living here with us, he never came here. We have to listen to him. Who knows how to decide? She or him? Who knows how to decide? She, the lady who's, okay? Who knows? She knows. She knows better, of course. I'm sure she tried different proposal to come up with this setting. She knows there is roughly 15 people, that's why she did it that way. If she knows that maybe 40 people will come, she will have different arrangement. So always the people in the site know better. Now, this is in Cyprus, and you see this very often in Istanbul. It's a sign of control. The people around this site, they demolished their buildings, they did not remove the remains, then the street went up. So this street up there, and this is the original level. This is the original level. Here in Taif city, somebody demolished his building, built new building, he did not move the remains, and he damaged the people around it, and he made just a step here, just one step. Okay? You understand this now, right? Now look at this, and it's quite common in Istanbul. You see mosques here, you go down, then you go up. Why? Where the people who built it doesn't know, they know. Gradually the street level went up over time. See how the city is living entity? Here, this in our university, the Fatih Sultan University, this is how it was originally. 50, 60 years later, I think it became like this. Now it's like this. And you see that often in Istanbul. So the minute you see this, you should realize that people lost control. Now all this talk passed about one thing, control, okay? Let's forget it. Now I'll introduce something else, ownership. Now I'll introduce something else, which is what? Ownership. Remember in the beginning I said mechanisms, hukuk, remember? We talked about control, now we talk about ownership. Let's say that there is a village, small village, that has 50 houses, and the people were given 200 houses. 200 trees. How would they distribute those trees? Each house, let's say, will have mathematics. 200 by 50, 4 trees, okay? Each house should have 4 trees. How they distribute the trees in this town? There is different scenarios. One scenario, they will put all the trees where? In the street, right? Second scenario, they will place all the trees inside the dwelling, right? Third scenario, in between. Now, which scenario is better? Which one do you like? Who likes this? Raise your hand. No one. Okay, good. Who likes this? Raise your hand. You all like this? Okay. Now each one has its own advantages, right? How do you know which is better? Now when you make planning or urban design, what are we doing? We are deciding the location of the elements. Any design is deciding locations of elements. Now I'm showing you just one element, a tree, and you see how it's difficult to decide its site. In this case, when the trees will be outside, The people, older people, they sit here, they gather here, the social bond between men will be very high. But the guy does not spend much time inside the house. Here, the guy spends more time inside the house. Here, it could be in between, right? But let's say that it has fruits, olives. Better. Now look how it was in the Muslim city. This is Safranbulu, no trees in the street. Where are they? In the house. This is Tunis. Where are they? In the house. This is North Africa, very clear, you see? No trees, all the trees inside. When the French colonized Tunis, this is what they did. The trees are in the street. So what does this mean? While it was in North Africa like this. So what does this mean? Good chunk of the property, of the society's wealth, is moving to the public domain. I don't say this is good or bad. I'm just describing the mechanisms, the hukuk. Taza, North Africa. Now this is Casablanca, the trees in the beginning, now become bigger. Is it only the built environment? Is it only a tree? What is it? Everything. Street lamps, sidewalks, yachts, airplanes, columns, seats, everything. How do you distribute them? The same with the trees could be applied to the seats. Where do you put the seats in the society? In the streets or in the schools or in the hospitals or. Now I only showed you two things, control and ownership. It seems control and ownership is very much affects the people's initiative. Affects the people's initiative. What's the meaning of initiative? Initiative? In Turkish, initiative?
Harekete geçme iyi bir tercüme olabilir.
Yani something push you to do something. You'll be pushed to do something. Okay? Now, when I came, I left my mobile here. She took us outside. There I remembered my mobile. I came back. I said, oh, my mobile. Why? Because it's mine. I bought it. If it's for the government, what do I say? Maybe I don't care much, right? If you are starting your life and you bought a car, what do? You take care of the car, you clean it. Compare that with the car of the police. What do? They drink tea, coffee, it's spilled and so on. Then they may take the car to to change the oil. It may be changed, maybe not, maybe they sell the oil for something else and they say it's changed and it's not changed. So when you own things, naturally you care about it. That's why capitalism triumphed over Marxism, socialism. With socialism, nobody owns anything, but everybody owns everything. In capitalism, some people have things to own. So initiative is connected to ownership. Here, for example, this guy irrigating this tree, it is not his tree. He has a contract with the government to irrigate the tree. So he pours so much water so he'll finish fast. Whether the tree live or die, that's not his business. Then it will die. You see these guys repairing the street, but they want to drink tea, chai. So they make a fire to heat water. For them, it's not important the condition of the flower pot. That's not important. What's important for them is to drink tea. Here in a Jamel, masjid, a carpet. Because when the people pray, the carpet moves. So what did the Imam did? Something very clever. He nailed he nailed the carpet to the ground. Why? He doesn't own it. Would he do that in his house? No, I have some students here from architecture. You know this very good example. The tables in the schools of architecture, they are always cut. Would they do that in their house if the table is theirs? No, they don't do that. So ownership has much to do with the condition of the object. Now here in the university, you see the plastic? Who cares? It is not his. This guy was repainting in Alexandria the wooden panels. He did not remove the previous paint. He repainted the existing paint. Now it will be damaged in no time, and it's not painted from the bottom. Here in my university there in Saudi Arabia, they left these chairs and tables outside in the hot sun, 50 degrees, for 3 weeks. Why? They want to move it from building to another. A truck did not come, there is no people to move it, 3 weeks. By 3 weeks it is damaged. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how to do this. Look at this tree. Okay, this one. Here, Istanbul, they want to handle the baby. They put ropes, both sides, and the tree to be like this. Would they do that in their house? If the tree is yours, would you do that? No, of course not. Look at it again. I think because of it's wireless, it's not. Wow. It's not me. This is the price of advanced technology.
You don't have control over it.
Yes. Good. Do you have a cable with it? We have a cable with Anyhow, so you know where are we going. We said the built environment is dynamic, it's always changing. When it changes, we can see who in control. We should know who in control, because if you want to seek higher quality environment, I'm not talking about beauty, domes, arches, no. We have to look at higher quality environment. First, we should understand it. To do that, we should understand control. Then I talked about ownership. Then I talked about initiatives. Yes. Okay. Let me show you since it's here.
Sorry for the disconnection.
Now let's see this also. Since it's working, take advantage of it. You see the tree? What's happening? Okay. This is Friday prayer. This is, sorry. This is Friday prayer. You see this gentleman where he's sitting? After he left, this is how it looks like. It is damaged. Now, I gave a lecture in Sweden, Stockholm. It was 15, 20 below zero. And there was opening here. I told the manager, please seal it. You save some money with heating. He said, okay. We stayed 5 days, nothing happened. Compare this with this guy in Turkey. He's an owner. He wants to reduce the bill of electricity. Can you imagine where he's standing? This is the 4th floor. It's very dangerous, right? Why he does that? Initiative. Initiative. He's acting, he's moving to do things. Now, people usually has basic human tendencies. What is the meaning, basic human tendencies? Who translated this to Turkish? You know. Loud. There is basic human tendencies on the people. And if we allow them to move in the side, do things in the side, we should expect things to happen. Here, for example, this guy built a staircase because he wants to expand in the future his property. Basic human tendencies, like people like to improve their properties. People like to expand their properties. People like to avoid intervention by outsiders. People like to impose their values on what they own, what they control. So these are the basic human tendencies. And they are always there. This guy took part of the dented street. He just took it. This guy took part of the street. Now why this happened? Because supposedly, this is North Africa, the people living in the site should control. When the Baladiya came, stripped control from them, they lost control, but the Baladiya is not always there. Or he corrupted the Baladiya. This is another example. Can you imagine there was an arch here, it disappeared. This is Egypt. Poor people. Now, a lot of you will say, well, Jamil, you are saying we should give the people more power to do things, right? Look what they will do. They will do rubbish. I say, well, they are poor. This is the best they can do for themselves. So the issue is not design, the issue is poverty. And this guy here took part of the dead-end street, again, to expand his property. Here you can see a famous housing design, I think by Le Corbusier. I'm not sure. Look what happened after a few years. People, because there is basic human tendencies, expand their properties. This is in Malaysia, Malacca. This is arcades. Gradually it's covered. It is taken by the shops. And this is not only in Malaysia, or it's all over. It's all over the world. People, when they do things, they learn from each other. This guy here, because the column is in the street and he has the right to have a cantilever in the upper floor, this is what he did. Another guy did this, did. The whole street is like that. Maybe there are 40, 50 buildings like that. Here this guy was so scared to his corner because the street is narrow, so he put this steel to protect his wall. That neighbor, before they hit his wall, they did it to protect his wall. So people learn from each other. Now, let me introduce a concept. I said ownership and control. Let me introduce another concept. Imagine that the built environment talk. Imagine that the built environment talk. The built environment speak. What this chair will say? What do you expect this chair will say?
Why is nobody sitting on me?
Why nobody is sitting on me, right? She says, well, I like it because I will live longer. It's nobody sitting on me. But imagine that this seat is in a hotel entrance. It might say, the people throw their bags on me, their kids jump on me, one day I will be thrown away, right? Make a dialogue with yourself, with all the objects. What this table might say. Sometimes to clean things, the lady, if nobody is there, she jumps on this and she starts cleaning the window. Please move me from here. They want to live longer. But when they answer the question, pay attention to this. Would they say the people using me are man or woman, black or white, Muslim or Jew, wearing hijab or no, pray or no? They don't say that. What do they say? They answer things that relate to themselves. They want to live longer. They don't care about who's using them. They want to live longer. If you make this scenario, why I made this scenario, what happens if the built environment talks? The built environment doesn't care about the users. Let's take an example. Let's say this space is a place in the 3rd floor of apartment building, and there is door there for apartment, another door here, 3rd door, 4th there. And let's say that is all the people around it are Muslims and religious. What do they do in this place in Ramadan? They pray Tarawih maybe, right? If they're not Muslims, they dance, they put music, right? Now if that land is damaged, and the people living here, Muslims or non-Muslims, own this space, what do? They immediately fix that lamp. Why? Because it is for them. But if this space is owned with the Waqf and she needs some money to repair that, she has to write a letter, right? To goes to the Waqf. They have to send somebody to check whether she is correct or she is not correct, and whether the lamp is bureaucracy, bureaucracy, bureaucracy. It takes 1 week maybe to fix the lamp, right? So whether people are Muslims or no, black or white, doesn't matter. What matters is hukuk. What matters is, do they own the space or they don't own the space? In the Muslim city, all spaces are owned by the people. That's why if we imagine that the built environment talks, we will realize, and I'll jump here, maybe it's difficult to explain, that what makes the quality of the built environment higher are 3 things. I talked about ownership, control. 3rd thing is use. Use. Who uses this chair? He or me or she? We as a party, the people who come and sit here and study here, use this chair. So it's not like a chair in your office, in your own office. So we say a group of people use this chair. Is this chair like a chair in the park? More number use the chair in the park, and most likely it will be damaged. So we have three claims: ownership, control, use. Now let's do the following. We put them together. Ownership, control, use. What are the possible combinations that could emerge? The first is that one party, one person, one party, own, control, use. Like what? Like this one. I own it, control it, use it, right? Now if I didn't like it or something, I throw this down. It's not mine, right? It will be damaged. I take revenge, right? It's not mine. I don't own it. But with this one, I don't do that. I'm very careful. When you talk about this thing where one party, one individual own, control, use, people think always of objects, glasses, clothes. Oops, sorry. Sorry, how does this work? You see, I was lucky, no. Thank you. But you can think of something else, not only objects. A tree, a big tree in the public garden owned by the people around them. A square. In London there is parks fenced by a fence. The people living around the park, although there is street, they own that park. Okay? We'll come to more examples. I named these 5 different situations forms of submission. Remember we said we need a theory. I called it forms of submission. What's the meaning of form of submission? It is 5 forms. Submission, submit, taslimat, or what? The object finds itself under the people. It has no choice. What's the meaning of submission? Taslimat? Taslimat. The object has no choice. You cannot ask a chair, would you like it if I sit on you or no? No. You just sit. The objects in the built environment are under control and ownership and use of the people in the society. They has no choice. That's why they are under the submission. So I called it forms of submission. And I call this unified form of submission. Why? Because responsibility, which affects the quality of the built environment, is unified in one group or one party. Okay? You are with us. Now, in this case, 3 parties enjoy a property. Like what? See? Who's smart here? 3 parties or individuals share an object. Like what? Who owns the mosque? God. Waqf. Who controls it? Government, awqaf. Who uses it? The prayers, right? This space. Who owns this floor? Who owns it? Baladiya? So you only use this space, but you don't control it. Can you change the tiles?
No, if we're not taking.
Okay. So here in this case, they use, the management maybe controls, who owns? Maybe the Baladiya, we don't know. So many objects in the built environment, if you ask who owns, who controls, who use, you can see things differently. Why? Because you can tell how the built environment in the future will improve or change. So this is, I call it dispersed form of submission. Why? Because responsibility is dispersed in three parties. Party own, party control, party use. Here in this case, I called it when one party use, another party own and control. I called it permissive. Like what? Most of you know this example. Like what? Rented house. Apartment building. When you rent a house, you use it. Do you own it? Do you control it? Maybe you control the oven or the dishwasher, but you don't control the wall. Here in Turkey, there is housing project, for example. If you want to, and you own it, if you want to enlarge the kitchen, you cannot. Why? You don't control it. Now, you can think of so many examples. We'll discuss that if you have time. Another form of submission is called it possessive. One party owns, another party control and use. Like what? When you go to Charshamba Bazaar, the person standing there, he use and control the space. Does he own it? No. A good example of this, and it was the reason, I think, for the fall of the Ottoman Caliphate, which is Marylands. Marylands, or is it in Turkey? What is it in Turkish? Maryland? Anyhow, land owned by the government, by the Sultan. Before the end of the Ottoman Empire, people used to revive lands. They go, they take a land, they make cultivation, farm, and so on, and they own it and they pay zakah. When the Ottoman Caliphate at the end became weak and they needed more money, they said any land that is owned without the permission of the Sultan is owned by the Sultan. Now you don't pay zakah, you pay more. What happened to the people? They lost interest. Why do I work hard? I don't make profit. It goes to the government. So it became like socialism. The income went down. What happened? The Ottoman Empire became weak. Who give me an example of this possessive form? Think of it. The last form of submission is called trusteeship form of submission. A party owns and uses, but does not control. In the past, if a child, his father died, he owned and used. Who controls? The trustee, the bank, whatever. But these days, there is so many. If you have a house, and there is a balcony in the house, you own the house, you own the balcony, you use it. If you want to close the balcony, can you do that? Then who controls the balcony? The baladiyya and the people together makes one party. Okay? If you look at the built environment with this perception, you will see things very differently. You start understanding the built environment. Why? Because we can see people's initiatives, we can see control, and so on. Here, this guy in Bangladesh urinating in the street. Can you believe this? And this is him, sorry. Why? There's no control. When in 1985, this is in Bangladesh, I want to go into this boat. The guy told me, take your shoes. Can you believe it? Why? It is his boat. He's so scared it will be damaged. So I have to take my shoes. While here, no man's land, it's chaotic. The government are in control, but cannot control because there is no employees. The people are not controlling. It's terrible. You go outside, you see this village in the same country. The people are in control. It's very, very clean. Now, this is made by the Baladiya for the manhole of them. They bring the big brush with paint. Now, if you want to do this in your house, what do? You take it out, you clean it, you brush it, then you keep it to dry, then you put it back. Then it lives longer. But now, you cannot open it. Why? Because the paint becomes like a glue. Then you want to take it out, you'll break it by force. These guys from Saudi Arabia, and if you know the situation there, younger guys in this generation, they don't work. They're lazy, yeah, they're rich. A guy gave them a land to make a football playground. They worked very hard. Why? Because it's for their own interest. This is in Afghanistan. Every centimeter has a use. Although maybe it looks terrible. Now when you hear what I said, immediately we will conclude the following. If one party owns, control and use, the situation will be much, much better than three parties, right? That's the conclusion. Now, let's say that there is two apartments next to each other, two apartments. One apartment is lived on by a nurse, a lady nurse. Very clean, very neat, she takes care of the house. But she doesn't own and control, she only use, right? So this property is in the dispersed form of submission. And there is another apartment next to it, owned, controlled, used by 5 guys, 5 brothers. And they are dirty. And they fight. And they knock the door, like that. 5 years later, which property is nicer? The first one in which there is a lady or 5 guys? The lady. But the lady is in the dispersed form of submission. This goes against what I'm saying. The 5 guys in the unified form of submission, because the 5 guys own, control and use. It should be better, right? How come I'm wrong, right?
Aren't you saying better? Maybe I'm understanding wrong. I don't know.
2 apartments. One apartment, 1 lady, use, doesn't own, doesn't control. Another apartment, 5 brothers, own, control, use. But they are very dirty. They work in a mine. Or, okay. She's very neat. After 5 years, which is better? This or this? According to what I'm saying, this should be better, right? But now I gave you example, the opposite. That's why I say, do not compare. I didn't say this property is better than that. I'm saying the property will be better if we pushed it to the unified form. That property that has 5 brothers will be much better if they own, control and use. It will be much worse if they don't control or use. That apartment for the nurse, for the lady, it will be much, much better if she owns and controls. That's why we are confused, we don't see reality very well, the built environment. If we keep this in mind, we can read the built environment differently. Why? Look at this housing situation in Morocco. It looks terrible. But it is the best solution for the people because they are poor. It's not a matter of design. Because to design, you have bureaucracy, you have a lot of things. This is a housing project in Morocco. It costs so much money, but then the fruit is not that much. This is in Spain, dead end street. The person owns the street, controls it. You see how taking care of it here in Hubei, Saudi Arabia. Now this is in, I'm sure you have here in Turkey, you call it Kojagunda. They call it in South Africa favela, they call it here Mexique, they call it squatter settlements. It has different names. But they all share one thing in common. What is it? The people don't own. The people are not secure. The minute they own it, they move. I read a doctoral thesis, I think in 1983, for a Turkish girl in Berkeley. And she did her thesis here in Istanbul in the squatter settlements, that through bureaucracy, election and so on, they promised them to give them ownership if the guy who voted for will win. And they gave them ownership. Immediately that site became much, much, much improved because the government recognized their ownership. This is in the same in North Africa, in Morocco. You see, the people use garbage to make houses. But when you go closer, you look closer, you see this is an entrance to a house, very poor, yet it's very clean. And I walked inside, he allowed me inside, this is the water well, very clear. He pulled the tiles from everywhere to make a house. This is Malaysia, this is the reception room. So let's not confuse forms of submission with the people's capabilities, financial situation. Now in Islam there is something called ramification. I will not explain that much, but anyhow, I said there is a unified form of submission which is the best for the society. So if we have, how are we doing with time? Ooh, I won't take much time, okay. In capitalism, what is the percentage of owners? 60, 65, rarely 70, 40, 50, 55. With socialism, 5, 10, sometimes nil. With Islam, it's almost 100%. Why? Because the spring that creates unified form of submission is always there. There is several mechanisms, hukuk, in the society that makes the people owners. A good example is that is ihya al-ard, land revivification. Land is considered dead, people can take it, revive it. So rather than renting a house, people can start with a situation like this. In Saudi Arabia, they take the barrels of oil, they flatten them, and they make a house. And gradually, and this is very poor guy who made from ropes and cloth a house. Gradually, you see, this is the original house. Gradually, it's moving. He has a car. Gradually, the people build themselves. And here you can see, then this. Here you can see, first room. Gradually, the house is growing. So we are building the individuals, not the built environment. When we build the individuals will build the environment much better. Look what's happening now in Egypt, Sisi. What's happening? Did you see, do you follow the news? The people are very poor, becoming poorer and poorer. Maybe revolution is coming. Why? Because he kept building and building cities, bridges, highways. There is, if somebody asks, I'll answer this question. There is Prophet by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. شر مال ينفق في البناء. The worst money you spend is on construction. If somebody asks this, I am an architect. I will defend that and I'll explain that. When the people, I think we should stop here. We should stop here. Now, very quickly, how those ideas, because we took so much time, how those ideas work together, how do you transfer them into design? How do you transfer them into design? I'll only take 5 minutes. Remember the following. If you take a housing project in a socialist society, who owns the house? The government. Who controls it? The management. The people only use, right? Here in Turkey, for example, I don't know the situation, but if you own a house, you own and use, do you control? You don't control. If you take in the United States, the compounds, there is compounds, condominiums, they call it, if it's an apartment building. Who owns the buildings? The people own the apartments. The shared elements in the building, like the roofs between two parties, two houses, the wall between neighbors, is owned by all the owners of the building. Each brick is owned. If there is 10 dwellers, each brick is owned by the 10 dwellers. Okay? So if you put these ideas, I will not explain this, it takes a course to do that. Okay? How do you move these ideas into design? One has to dismantle the built environment technically into walls, floors, ceilings, and so on, and look at change and look at who control and who dominate to come up with a design method that was invented in the past by John Habrakan. Now I'm trying to see how it works in our context. I'll show you some slides very quickly because we don't have to explain them. This is how we can utilize those ideas into a design tool. Sorry, we don't have time. And this is a work of John Habrakan. Variation, change, control, okay? How those ideas that I explained, some of them can be transferred into design tools. Let's stop here. I will leave the presentation with her, you can do it, but we very quickly go through the slide, I will not explain them. All this has a message to do with power, control. Look at this, how people control spaces. There is always gates in the Muslim city. Gates means signs of control. I see her standing there, open the door, close it. Nobody can come inside without her permission, right? She's in control of the space, but not outside. Look at the city, how it works in terms of control. There is gates. I was impressed by Borsa market. There is so much gates, so sophisticated in terms of gates. This space behind is owned, controlled, or just controlled by the people. No cars can go on. This is Borsa. Okay, let's stop here. If you have any questions. I have just one question. You are from Turkey, I speak in English. How much did you understand? What is the percentage? Just tell me 50%, 5%, 100%. How many understood 100%? Oh, mashallah.
Today understood 100%.
Mashallah, well, good. 50%? Oh, mashallah, you should all now ask very good questions.
So, I'm interested to ask the question since I'm not from the field, but what's the reason for you telling us not to compare? What's the basic thing which I think methodologically you think that comparing would be a mistake?
Yes.
Why is that? Can you go over that again, please?
Well, comparing different objects will be a mistake because let's take a housing project built by the government, okay? In which, well, somebody wrote a paper. He said, Jamel Akbar, what he talks about doesn't make sense. And I have a proof of that. He said, in Riyadh, in the capital, there is a diplomatic quarter. It is very well designed, very beautiful. He said, if you compare that with this village, and he gave name of village, that looks terrible, made by the people. So he's comparing an object designed by the government in the dispersed form of submission with something built by the people that costs nothing, and it's in the unified form of submission. Now, how much that building built by the government cost? There is so much bureaucracy. My answer was, if we just manage to count the cost of the pencils of the people who worked on the project, we'll make a very good project in that village. Just the pencil. At that time, there was no computer. So whenever we want to compare, we should bring bureaucracy into the picture. We should bring social aspects and so on. But if we use this method, we can see the strength of those issues. For example, somebody may want to study the effect of religion in the built environment. If we don't look at hukuk, which is basically mechanisms, ownership, control, all principles of hukuk, at the end they become control, ownership, use in the built environment. If we don't look at hukuk, what happens? We may see, for example, let's say a parking space in the street. Here, for example, there is Ish Park, okay? And they solve the problem to a large extent. But imagine that the parking space in the street was the right of the people living in the property adjacent to it. This is in Islam called fina. Fina is the space adjacent to the property. So outside here in the street, the fina is the right of the people here to use it. So they can say, Jamil, come give us a lecture, we'll give you parking space outside. I say, okay, I will come. No parking space, I may not come. I was invited to somewhere in Istanbul, I don't want to name the name. You have parking space? Yes. I went there, but there is no parking space. So I went around, then I found parking space. Next time I went with public transportation, it's much faster. Istanbul, no problem, you have public transportation. But imagine something like Riyadh or Kuwait, or where you don't have parking space, you don't have public transportation. So the issue becomes, when the government controls the streets and the parking spaces, you need bureaucracy, you need meters, you need so much. This is not counted. We don't see it, we don't think of it. All we think about is, oh, it looks fine, it looks nice. Because I could find park space, I pay the money. There is, yes?
So you're saying, I think, that don't compare as a designer from a design point of view. Comparison is possible, but it should be done on a whole other level.
Comparison is always possible if we kept on mind the forms of submission, which is basically hukuk. If we stripped hukuk outside, and this is explained further in another book called al-Haq, which is scissoring rights. Scissor, you know scissor? Scissor, you cut. So I have this nice, because I tried it, it looks in my size, right? But you cannot wear it, right? Because I'm fatter than you. Okay? Let's see, okay? You're not comfortable with it. If I wear yours, I'm not comfortable. The same thing goes for all clothes. So the clothes of the president, Erdogan, for example, should be different than the mayor. As hukuk. God says, in al-hukmu lillahi yaqussu al-haqqa wa al-fasirin. God scissored hukuk in a way that suits you. And then you don't collide with each other for prosperous society. Now we, with our intelligent, brilliant minds, we created different kinds of hukuk that makes our life miserable sometimes. China, for example, said you can have only one kid. You cannot have two. 50 years later, now we'll say, oh, we were mistaken, right? The same in the States. They don't know gun control. Is it allowed or no? All these issues, hukuk, relates to the, if we looked at the built environment, and we keep in mind the people's initiatives, we keep in mind the environment changing, hukuk becomes very powerful to understand the situation. For example, here you have Charshamba Bazaar, or what happened to the people living inside? Do they like it or they don't like it? If he's renting, he doesn't like it because he doesn't benefit anything. The street is closed. If he's the owner, maybe he will be compensated by the municipality. So it depends on the personal situation. Where is he in the built environment? Is he owner, user, and so on? The more user you have the built environment who don't own, the worse it is, like socialism. The more owners we have in the built environment that who control and own, the better it is. Why? Because they gain knowledge through experience. Let me give an example. In the traditional city, in the Muslim city, nobody can do anything in the street without the passers-by permission. So if you want to plant a tree or you want to open a shop, the people should allow you, not the Baladiyya. We can always corrupt Baladiyya, but can you corrupt the people on the side? No. Yani, let's take the example of, I lived in a project called Nef Onuch in Jevizliba. Suddenly you have 6, 7 tower buildings. Each one is, I think, 15 story. Each story has 10 apartments. Would those people going, coming, damage the original sites, the original people of the site, or they don't? Of course they will damage. Because the people did not have control. Density, and all cities, not only Istanbul, is increasing. But if the people have control, cities will never be so much dense, because the people will not allow it. People always will say, no, you are damaging my property. The value of my property will be damaged. I'll be damaged. So control is very important to solve problems in the city.
How would you describe this form of submission of servants in Arab communities?
And what?
In Arab communities. So, or maybe Saudi Arabia, because I know Jeddah, Riyadh, my parents lived there for some time. And their submission of the hospitality people or of servants are below dispersed. They do not have control, views, or any other reference in the built environment. How would you evaluate this?
Okay. Now, it doesn't matter whether it is Saudi Arabia or Morocco, or we always should ask first to know the form of submission, which object we are talking about. That's important. We cannot talk about it like that, it's school, hospital, no. For example, this floor is owned by municipality, controlled by us. So if you want to make a hole here to go downstairs, you cannot do that, right? Because the downstairs person has to agree. So you both up and downstairs control. Who use? You both use. This situation, whether it was here or in Brazil, it is universal. It is the same. The same relationship will happen. One party own, another party use and control. But if we talk about that object there, it is a different situation. They own, control, and use. So we always should ask which object we are talking about. Collectively, in capitalist societies, because there is so much rules and regulations, and you have to monitor those regulations to see whether they're implemented or no, there is so much bureaucracy. Bureaucracy means rules and regulations. Rules and regulations means people elected to make those rules and regulations. That means heavy collision fights to control the city, like it's happening now in Istanbul. They run for election and so on. Who controls? However, in other countries like dictatorship countries, in the Middle East, for example, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and so on, people has no control. But we don't see the bad situation of the environment because those countries are rich. Like Qatar, it's rich, but it's throwing money on the built environment. That's why I said don't compare two objects. In Qatar, the government own, control, the people only use in most places. It is not good condition, but it's camouflaged by the wealth of the society. But you cannot make every place like Qatar because there is no enough funds for that. And we compare that with a house in Mauritania, poor people, the house is not looking nice. Why? Because the people are poor, although they own, control, and use. But if they have the money of Qatar, and they are very well knowledgeable, you see what they will do. By the way, if you ask question about Saudi Arabia, I think it is Islamic. Oh, no, no, no. That's why I'm living in Turkey. They only taught us Islam as prayer and fasting and hijab. They never taught us Islam as hukuk, as rights. Muslims are from the Umayyad Empire stripped from their rights. All the sheikh and ulama they talk about values. In the second book I explain in the beginning, remember always two things, values and mechanisms. When they talk about Islam these days, they talk about values, how to pray, don't lie, don't do this, don't do that. They never talk about mechanism. They never talk about ratification. They never talk about, you know, if Islam implemented, a Turkish company can go and take the gas from Qatar, for example. That's their right. God created everything on earth. God created the people. Okay? And there is a verse about that. Ayat al-Fayl. ما أفاء الرسول من القرى في الله والرسول. Those who know Quran, they know it. That says, the thing that you possess, you own it. The thing that you possess, you own. And that makes all the people rich. There is no poor people. Why? The thing that you possess, salt, silver, petroleum, uranium, whatever. Companies will be formed from the anxious young guys and they go, they take the minerals for themselves, they sell it. Everybody will become rich. Then you will have strong ummah, but not now like this. So, does it mean that Saudi Arabia, Islamic, they have two harams and so on, that everything is Islamic? No, no, no. It's not at all. It's not at all. Islam is not implemented anywhere in the world now, unfortunately, anywhere in the world. Yes, we pray, we fast, but we never rule by Islam. No way. Now, some of you will say, hey, this guy is crazy. How can you have ummah without borders? How you can? That's another subject, it's another book. It needs another lectures. It's okay.
You talked about the design methodology created by someone, but I missed who created that design methodology.
John Habraken. John Habraken. H-A-B. And if you open system, you go to Google, open system building, there is many new ideas. It is now the trend. The Chinese, with YouTube, you can make it yourself. How can you build your own home and so on and so forth. So it's as in the media. Before we have TV, main TV, CNN, ABC, BBC. That is now being destroyed by Facebook, Twitter, and so on. The people are in control of the media somehow, gradually. The same is happening in architecture and housing. The people are learning how to do their own houses. But they make mistake. That's why you need the architect. Don't misunderstand me. I don't say we don't need the architect or the planner. No. We need them, but their role will be different. Now, planners under the authority of the government, they obey the government and they do what the government asks them to do. So they don't do often the thing that is logical. There is a very famous book, Rationalizing Power, Bent Flyberg. He wrote a book about a winning project in Denmark, I guess, and he showed that this winning project did not win because the decisions were correct. No, the decisions were rationalized according to the power of the people playing outside that time. And this is very, very important big book. So if there is bureaucracy, there is government, the planner acting within that, he will not do as much good as if the people of the site controlling him. Group of people bring a planner, please do this for us. But that's another subject. You will have a lot of questions, how he does the infrastructure, sewage, and it's another lecture.
We talked about the principle of control, use, and responsibility. So I was thinking about if we want to implement those principles in this day, how can we start with implying those principles? And does those principles change the behaviors of people, or should we first change the behaviors of people to be able to imply those principles? And where does the change start?
Well, I think the change starts with bringing the people's awareness. The people don't know about the connection. Most people don't know. Now they are starting in the Western culture to look at decentralizing planning methods and so on. So it starts with making people aware of their rights. When they are aware of their rights, they will ask for it. When they ask for it, they will pressure the guys in control of the built environment, and gradually things change. For example, now suddenly you see in an area high-rise building. If the people know around that high-rise building that they have the right in the Islamic legal system to stop this project, they can go to court. And they stop the project. You stop this, you stop that. Gradually, it becomes a convention, and the people aware of it, that you cannot do any project without the approval of the people of the community. Now, I don't know the case in Turkey, but in third world countries, if the king or the president say, that's it. Nobody can say no. Nobody can object. Yani imagine there is a city now is being built 70 kilometer by 500 meter. What is this? Who can say no? Right? Awareness is missing. And we as an architect, we should bring this awareness to the people and not separate architecture just as a design of a bank or a hotel or a school. No. We should bring those issues, economical issues, social issues, power issues into play. Then the people will understand their rights. And sometimes I think change could come from the West. From the West, because they have sort of revolution now. The people there now, younger generation, they are, especially after 7th October, they're asking about their rights. Why do we pay taxes? To fight the Palestinians? No, we shouldn't pay that. Why do we pay taxes? So they are questioning taxes. Now a lot of people are not sending their kids to school. Why? Because they're questioning the educational system. So you question this, you question that, you question that. Gradually, people will rise. Because they fooled us. They said, if you do everything, but it's another subject. If people act and do everything, the resources of this world will finish. There will not be enough resources for us. And this is coming from Malthus, Malthusian theory. Malthus is a person in the 17th century. He said, one day the resources of this earth will finish. There is no enough food because we are growing in number. No. They found by research there is so much on this earth. So by those concepts that materials will finish on earth and so on, they control the people by rules, regulations. But if you think of it, there is no need to control the people, because the more you control the people, there is more poverty, there is more crime. The less you control the people become richer. They are richer, they are higher in their values, in their ethics. So there is less crime and so on. So a day will come, inshallah, where those ideas will prevail through the people's awareness of these issues. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's why she said, come. I said, okay, I come. I know I drive for more than an hour on Sunday, Saturday, but maybe you will pick up the idea. Say, hey, this guy crazy, Jamel Akbar crazy. He's saying this. Others say, okay, let's say what he's talking about. We'll refute his argument, and they start reading. And that's what's happening in the Arab world, in the Arabic language. The idea is spreading very fast. Alhamdulillah. Yes. We can stop if you want, and we can continue.
First of all, thank you so much for that presentation. I wish we could continue it, maybe another time. My question is it possible to evaluate or to know ahead if a change is a positive one or not? For example, if we're talking about historical monuments, maybe change makes it more or less clear if it's going to be a positive one or not. But what about other things in the built environment? You showed pictures from the past and today. Is it possible to know ahead that it's a positive or negative change?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. Is change predictable? That's why I gave the case of this chess game. You remember I said chess game, shatranj? Your question falls there. Can we know what will happen in the future, or we couldn't? I say within capitalism and socialism, you cannot know at all. Why? Because you don't know what these big guys will do with the business. Maybe they open a new road. Maybe they say they're lobbyists, they're powerful. They say last minute the airport, Istanbul airport, will not be there, will be there. Why? Because they have lands on the road there. And they will buy the lands, so the land value goes up. Political pressure. Unfortunately, this does not happen, but sometimes it does happen. Maybe somebody wants to be rich with his colleagues, and he says, okay, we'll open a road from here to that town, not this town. Okay, why that town, not this town? They pave it, that town becomes very important because there is more traffic to it, more, let's say, tourism, and the people become richer. So always movement of the built environment in terms of change is subject to people's wishes. What they like, what they want, they can do it. Why? Because they have power, they have rights to do whatever they want. With hukuk, Islam, you cannot do that. Why? Because God, God scissored rights for you. You cannot do something beyond your capability, beyond your rights. Why? Because there is no public fund. It's amazing. In Islam, there is no public fund. Why? More public fund, more corruption. Less public fund, less corruption. How do you make a society without corruption? No public fund. Very easy. 3 verses in Quran, if you read them, they are the backbone of the Islamic economic system. No money for the government, very little. Money always goes to whom? To the people. The needy, the son of the traveler, the ladies whose husband died, and so on. Always goes to the people. Empower people. not empower government. And that miraculous, it leads to the how to create a very powerful society, because individuals are powered. You cannot make a powerful society with individuals who are weak. Why? Because the sum of the powerful individuals make powerful society. If you make a powerful individual, the whole society becomes individual. That's why third world countries are very weak, because if you want to travel to any Western country, they need a visa. And it takes a long time to take a visa. However, somebody from there, he can go anywhere without visa. They are powerful. What is the reason for that? Central control of the governments that made the people weak. Those rulers in the Middle East who think that they can create powerful society with their own power are stupid. And that's what's happening. They are building palaces, they are building roads, they are weak. Go to Dubai. They don't have infrastructure, they don't have sewage system. They don't produce anything. What do they have? Fancy buildings that imported. Everything is imported. Everything is imported. But it looks fantastic. This is a long subject that opens a lot of pain.